Okay, this is all here. This is all set up. I have to check my audio. That is all good, I think. Okay. My chat is up there. This is all working. Bot is working. Everything just working right off the get-go. How nice. Cool. Bendy Gerrit, Seth Rowe, how are you doing? How are you guys? Stripes is here. Everybody who has submitted for the feedback is here. That's good. Means that we can technically start immediately. Been working all weekend. Nice. I mean, depends on whether you like it or not. It seems by the emote that you don't really like it. Speaking about work, I'm starting work tomorrow. Full time. I'm starting my actual normal job. So I'm going to become part of normal society again. Instead of just doing this. No, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be strange. What's your muggle job? It's gonna be computer technician for a company that does conference stages. So they do light, video, and audio for conference stages, all throughout northern Italy, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. Because those are markets that have like a lot of conferences. Northern Italy being like a little bit of a hotspot for economic activity. And then UAE and Saudi Arabia is obviously very, very big. But I'm obviously going to stay in Northern Italy here. And I'm mainly going to be working on the systems that come back from the events and that have to be reconfigured and reformatted and reinstalled for the next event. Because you cannot have two events with the same installation for the PCs, because say that the client leaves a file on there or a video file or whatever the client of the latest conference leaves on there, you don't want a different client maybe in the same field getting access to that. Salary to work 37 hours across 5 days a week. Seems to be doing 7 days a week at the moment. That kind of sucks. You shouldn't work more than your contract says. That is not a good thing. That is not something that you should support. Because once you say yes to that, it's really hard to then start saying no. Right? If I now have a 40-hour contract, if I the first week say like, oh yeah, I can stay 2 hours late on the first day. Oh yeah, I can stay an extra hour. That doesn't really matter. I'm flexible. That kind of stuff. At some point, you're not going to be able to say like, no. Yeah, that ship sailed a long time ago. Yeah, for most people that tends to happen. But luckily, I have everything on paper. What is expected of me, and what they want from me, and what I'm gonna get in return. So I'm just gonna stick to that. I mean, I'm not gonna be an asshole about it. There are moments where I'm gonna have to work more and where I have to go to events, but they're also saying like you're gonna get compensated for that in a way that is good. You know what I mean? Like if if you need to stay overnight somewhere, or if you have to like actually attend an event, then you're gonna get compensated for that more. Or if you're running late because you have to go to an event, they're gonna depending on the meals that you're eating during company time, you're going to just get paid a certain amount of money. And whether you spend that or not, you just get to keep the money. And you can say that they give you, I believe it was 20 and 30 euros for lunch and dinner respectively. Italians don't do breakfast, so there's no breakfast in there. But if you do a lunch or a dinner, you get compensated for that. And say you eat a €5 pizza and you keep the other 25 euros, that's perfectly fine with them. They don't want any of the receipts or that kind of stuff. Which in my opinion is a much better rule of doing it that way than asking people all for the receipts, because that just takes a lot of time that they could be actually being productive, actually spend being productive. So that's nice, I like that. But I'm gonna have to see how it goes, and for now I've signed a 3-month contract with them. And so this is a deterministic contract, I believe it is called. And then after the 3 months, we're going to, or maybe even before then, but we're going to reevaluate, and then they're going to give me a indeterministic contract, which means a contract for as long as they want. €5 pizza in London, we can't find a pizza for less than £12, 15 euros. Yeah, but I live in the birthplace of pizza. If you ask more than $7 for margarita, you're not going to get any business. Depends a little bit of where you are serving. If you're in the center of Milan or something like that, then it's going to be different, of course. But if you're just in a local restaurant in a medium-sized town, or even a decent-sized city like I live in here in northern Italy, it's not going to be much more expensive than that. Good morning from Brazil. Morning. It is still morning in Brazil, I guess. Yes, because that's how time zones work. Anyway, for the people that want to join the feedback stream and cannot find the feedback queue for today, the reason for that is we have a new system in place. Sethro was really helpful in setting this up for me because I don't know how Discord works, but he knows a little bit about that. You have to read the rules before, and you have to read this post before, and then do as it says, click the check mark, and only then will you be able to see the actual queue. So that's how it's going to work from now on. And I'm doing this because we were still getting like a remix every week or two, and I just wanted to stop that. Different Sephiroth, yes. I just want to see if this helps with the submissions and not getting the people in there that are like annoying in that regard. Because we had one guy that had more to do with the challenge, but from there the idea came of just doing it for the feedback at least, so that the rules for everybody are clear. Right now for the challenge we don't have such a system, but I don't think that is going to be necessary. For those that don't know yet, there is a challenge going. There is a trans challenge going. I haven't worked on it too much. I might do after the feedback session a little bit of work on that then, instead of any of the tracks, because I don't really have a project that I can show on stream. I have one project where I need to record shorts in, so I cannot make any changes there, because otherwise my script will be off with what I've written in there. And I have another project that I've started that I'm not going to show on YouTube until it's finished. And then the other projects that I have are either like in the finalizing stage, so I don't even know if I'm going to have much work to do in there. And the work is going to be very, very boring in there. And I guess I could start a new track, but that's not really something that I want to do now, because I just started another one. And having too many tracks at the same time going is not exactly what I want. I guess there's one track that I could maybe work on, but I don't know how good that track is, how good that idea is. We'll see. Hello, Infrashell. How are you doing? Very European, mangled all the languages. It does look like that, yes. Anyway, I guess we'll get started with the feedback then. We have Stripes here, right? I saw him in chat before, yes. As one does, yes. Stripes with stellar wins. Been producing for about 4 years, on and off. Life gets in the way a lot. Yeah, it happens for a lot of people. Most advanced track I've made so far, mixed and mastered, although not sure I'm fully happy with the balance of it all. Keen to hear feedback on overall feel, execution, things I missed, should do more of, not do, and mastering. Thanks. Will do. Stellar wins. I will put it on my headphones. I knew I forgot something at the beginning of the stream, because I always do. Hello, MindB. Welcome, welcome. It's a fairly loud sound out of nowhere. When I have those kind of sounds, I usually like to have a little bit of a riser, maybe a reverse reverb thing that is just like a little bit of announcement or something in that trend that just announces that something is coming. Or maybe even a rise in the elements that already plays in those pads and that kind of stuff. Like it, nice and knocky. I do see that the shape of the kick is a little bit changed. I think this has to do with the mastering that you're doing. It does need to be resampled in a way. I can see here this transient is having a lot of issues. Definitely think you can get a little bit more punch out of this. I also think you can lower the kick a little bit at, I say 400 to 500 hertz area. Maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit like 700-800 hertz. I got some good news. My non-smoking streak, although it's been broken once, already closing in on a week and I don't feel the need. Nice, nice. Then you quit smoking together with me, I guess. Another non-smoker, yes. We're all in this together, MindB. I'm at the point where I still feel the moments where I would smoke. Right, the after dinner, and you start cleaning up after dinner, and then you're like, oh, usually I would have, rolled a cigarette here and then started smoking a cigarette while I'm doing the dishes kind of thing. That is still there, that feeling that I want to do that, but that's more the habit than actually needing it. The need is for me also gone. I like the vibe of the melodic synth actually. It's not often that it gets executed so well. I do think one cool thing to consider, this is a very loud bass note. One cool thing to consider is maybe cutting that tail once this kick and bass starts to play, so that the groove is really like a new moment in the track and it's a more abrupt transition. Quitting smoking is the easing thing, I'm doing it every day. Yes. That is usually the way people say it, alright? I like this. Nice key change. Works well with that melody. Overall mix-wise, I do think you could have a bit more of a bump with the hats. Could be a bit sharper. You do have fairly sharp melodies that kind of get in the way here, but the hats, even now playing here on their own, they are a little bit on the quiet side, I would say. You have a little bit of a continuous line down, whereas Psytrance, usually it has like a little dip at the, say, 200 to 1000 region, usually has a little bit of a dip there. And then it goes up a little bit more so that there's a slight bit of extra focus here. And then there's the high frequency focus for the hats and getting those a little bit more dynamic. You can see your... Let's see the melody. Plays again. The melody plays it in the high frequencies, completely overpowering the hats. So you're missing the groove there from them. Ducking on the track has gotten pretty secure again, maybe you could raise the threshold a bit. This better? Yeah, it's a very dirty bass line, very dirty kick and bass, which I would definitely try to clean up with resampling and fading stuff out and whatnot. Maybe you're doing something crazy on the master. I also see the transient of the clap being before the kick itself. I thought I heard that, but usually that's not something we really do in Psytrance. I've heard that and I've done that in other genres. But in Psytrance it's really about that tightness. So I don't feel like that really works. I also am not a fan of like those pre-claps. You know what I mean? The claps that have like a little bit of stuff before it that kind of like fades into the clap. Mastering was not done by me, but by a guy who is more on the trance side, so maybe that is why. Yeah, that might be the case. If that is something that is in the master, that is something to talk to your mastering guy about. It sounds more like a trance style mastering. It definitely does. This does not... It doesn't have the feeling of a Psytrance spectrum, and it doesn't have the feeling of that Psytrance tightness that I'm going for. But I think that is also partially to do with the way that it's written in the, as I said, with the snares and that kind of stuff. It's more melodic than Psytrance, it's more Psy than traditional trance. That is true. Yes, it's kind of in between. I do really like it. I think it will work well in a full-on set, just having a moment where you have something a little bit more melodic. It might be a little bit slow, though. What is the BPM? I think this is like a 138 BPM, if I'm not mistaken. Did it say it's BPM? No. But I guess you can, in between psytrance and trance is actually what I'm aiming for. 138 BPM indeed. Yeah. It might be a little bit too aggressive for mixing in with most tracks in 138, because 138 is a little bit more of a chill BPM. So I think most producers at 138, they don't have such an aggressive sounding kick and bass. You know what I mean? But other than that, the track itself, like the concept itself, sounds really, really good. Yo, can you check my track? Yes, I can. You will find all of the information right here. I hope that link is working, by the way. I haven't tested it. That's new today because we have the new rule thingy. Next up we have Pixelated. I don't know if Pixelated is here. I didn't see him in the chat yet. But this track got reposted here by Sethro so that I can listen to it directly from Discord, which is a lot easier. Pixelated is here. Nice, cool. So this is Alchemy 140 BPM.
Everything that appears.
Wait 1 second. It isn't working. It is for me. It links to the rules here. Maybe you have to enter the Discord first. Does that own? That would... Wait, Seth, I think maybe you cannot post links because... Can you post links there? Yeah. Hang on. I should be from here. No. Try again? If you click the invite first and then you go through the link, does it then work? That link that I posted before? Because then it's a little bit strange that it... I would think that the normal link that I'm posting, which is just like the channel link, right? In here. I now have set up the automated message to do the channel sync. Sorry, Pixelated will take a little bit more time, but I have to fix this first. Otherwise, it's just never going to work. But if this is the link, it would also just pop up the do you want to join the server if you're not in there. I was hoping that it would do that and then it would go in there. Which it maybe doesn't do. Probby Dime, how are you doing? Prod by Dime. Produced by Dime. I read it as Probby. I guess both are... I don't know, which one do you prefer? I just sent the link manual. Yeah, but that's that's the invite link. The invite link, I know that invites you to the server. What I wanted to do is I wanted to link directly to that message that you set up for the rules. Right? This one. The channel and then the link to the actual message itself so that people don't have to search for it. Because one of the things that people mentioned is that once they get into the Discord server, they have a hard time actually finding where to go. Well, it says prop by Dime, not prod. That's true, yes. For going feedback, what channel do I send in? You should be able to find the rules and then find it, yes. Dime has found it. Ah, so that one also works straight to the channel. I will... Give me a second. I will copy that link over and then put it in Stream Elements. Chat commands. There. For YouTube, for Twitch, and then the YouTube one. Okay, so that's now working. Nice. Sorry guys, took a little bit of time there to organize things, but we're testing a new system. So this is Alchemy 140 BPM by Pixelated. Let's hear it.
Everything that appears, truly consciousness, mind, it comes and goes.
As playing with the panning there. Do you think it's a little bit on the loud side, especially in comparison with that vocal? There's quite a lot going on here, especially because the ambience is still in there. The, how do you call it? Like the texture, the scene sounds, like raindrops and that kind of stuff are still in there. Nice balancing, I like that. Nice clean kick and bass. Maybe a little bit loud on the sub. Especially for such a progressive track, you don't really need the sub to be that loud. I think your snare could have a bit more of a fade. I feel like it's a little bit on the long side. I usually, with these more progressive vibes, I go with like a snappier snare drum, like a, I guess, just faster sounding one. Bulado, how are you doing? How are you? X-Sync, welcome as well. I can't access the feedback on stream anymore. That is true. You have to read the rules now in #feedback rules in order to get in there. Brought by Jeans. Welcome to the stream as well. Timers also needs to be. Here the snare sounds better. I would just take this snare and like fade it out over the course of the sample like you can do in Ableton, and then use that in the more progressive part, so that I guess you also have a nice difference then between them. I don't know if that rumble that we just saw there, if that's actual real rumble, if that is something that you have to take away. Ooh, I do see some bleeding into the kick transient now in the kick drum here. Maybe you're doing, yeah, again, something on your master, because it's also bleeding here in the between the bass notes. So in the rolling bass, that is definitely something to take care of. I didn't notice that in the progressive bass. Maybe it's also there, but maybe I just overlooked it. You can definitely get some extra free punch out of your rolling bass part if you fix that. Feels like it goes there was a little bit of a weird jump in energy there where it went into it. Feels like this should be one of those drops where it like slowly rises up the melody, and then because the track really almost stopped right before there, right? Hyperchrome music, welcome. This is a very good track indeed. Yeah, everything that I'm talking about is like small detail stuff. I do see continuously rumbling stuff in the parts. I believe it's maybe coming from some parts of the drums, maybe? Or maybe individual synths that just... Cool. I like that. I like that a lot. Make sure that your fade out when you're going in the outro XD, fade out all the way. Yeah, at the end of your mastering chain, maybe like either do it with a volume automation, but what I usually do is in my mix, I just go to all the tracks that are like moving up until the end of the production, and wherever the hit is, and versus where the end of the file is, I just make like one of those fades that is, I guess I could show, can I show? No, because it's not gonna work that. So that I have this unfinished track here, this is probably gonna have, not really, but it might have some of those issues. I would just go in here and do, the hit is here, I want the track to end there, so it's just like one fade That is not one of these, but one of those that really comes in towards the end, right? So that you're always sure that all of your elements fades out toward the end and it goes to absolute silence there. I think that's important when it comes into streaming. You don't want it to still be playing a delay tail and suddenly the delay tail cutting off and then going into the next track immediately. That sounds a little bit strange in a playlist setting. Cold Blue Water, welcome, welcome. Noah also here. Very cool. Next up we have Cage Koru, Kagekoru. I am not certain how to pronounce it. I think I didn't send this one to you. It's not a Psy/trance song in any way, shape or form, but still, why not? I mean, there's no issue for me there. Edit for clarification, I wanted to remix it because I don't like the mixing here at all, but at last Source Project is gone, so I'd have to re-record everything again. Okay. So this is recorded music. Interesting. We don't have that a lot. I agree with everything, like I said, it's a premix, so it's missing some details. Okay, yeah. Then hopefully my feedback is helpful in rectifying some stuff in the mix still. Is this the quote-unquote drop area? If that is the case, there isn't real transition between the build-up and the drop. Up until that point I was really liking it, and then I thought like, okay, now it's gonna have some power when we go into the drop. And then it just stayed at the same energy level. It didn't, when dropping, it didn't actually bump up the energy for it. Do you know what I mean? That is usually why in Psytrance itself, when we have a build-up, and then we have that little moment where everything stops and then the actual drop starts. So that when that drop hits, it has some actual impact and people get that, oh, now I have to start doing something, now I have to start dancing. In this case, the track doesn't really tell you through its structure where the transition is. In fact, it's literally at the end of the build-up where it happens. Most people are going to look at the Spectrum that does this and are going to say like the guitar is way too harsh, but that's what guitars are supposed to do when you're distorting them like this. Might be a good idea to make it a bit more dynamic, this guitar. There are ways of doing that. But overall the balance and seeing something like that in the Spectrum is not something most people would like throw on a Soothe or like manually just EQ that out or something like that, but that is it's better not to do that because that is where the actual texture of distorted guitar comes from. Yeah, I didn't know how to make that energy go up, so it's a pretty old track. It's not about like energy is always relative to the thing that is about to happen, right? So is this like an actual good example? Yeah. So this is a good example. This is very low energy stuff happening here. This is a breakdown.
There is no place and no moment in history where we stand and say, oh, here, oh, it begins
Sorry, wrong BPM.
now.
Even though this is a very slow part of the track and it's very low in energy, like very slow atmospheric stuff happening here, it still has some impact because the stuff that was happening before is much quieter and much lower in the mix and much lower in its energy still, right? If I had taken this part and put it in the build-up for the first part, which is like a stronger build-up segment, I guess here. This is much more of one of those transitions where the energy level really doesn't change. I guess it changes more earlier on, right? This is where the kick and bass really starts, and that is where the people are getting pumped. But if you put this in front of this, it feels like the energy goes down into the drop. We're getting hype. Nothing. You know what I mean? So it's about energy, and progression is always about stuff that is happening before it and after it. And if your buildup is at a certain volume and it uses a certain amount of frequencies and it uses a certain amount of, say, stereo wave and it uses a certain amount of elements, and if that continues into the buildup, or into the drop, sorry, then the energy is going to stay the same. So I guess if you want more impact from that moment of the drop, you would need to just like make the build-up go slightly lower in volume, give it a little bit of a stop, give it a little bit of a moment to breathe as well, and then go into the actual drop itself. Sergio, how are you doing? Welcome to the stream. Namaste indeed. But I like it, it has something special. You mean this? If I just chop out half of the track and just do this, you like the transition here? I don't like this transition. This is a terrible transition for me, because it raises it more than where it needs to go. Of course, you would need to like design it more around that. But if I were to design it around that, I would lower this energy and I would raise this energy, which would nullify the effect that I just talked about. I guess I do have some better examples, like this guy over here has some better examples of those pre-drop moments where I'm building up and then I stop. I think this track does that. A little bit at least. Does this have a real proper build-up? Bit of a strange piano part in the moment there, but now you hear everything slows down a bit. We just have the slide part of the kick and bass coming in. And then we actually hit it. In this case, the reason why we get more energy on this is because the bass comes back. So we're extending kind of the amount of frequencies that we're using. The transition is key, basically. It's all about transitions, yes. Not just transitions, but relativity more. Almost everything in music is relative, right? If you're mixing two elements, You can say like, okay, this is this volume is at minus 17, but that doesn't really say much unless you say relative to what? Relative to 0 dB, which is what we usually say, or is it 17 dB quieter relative to another element, right? It's also like high frequency. High frequency is technically also a relative term. Yeah, you can have a high frequency that is 10,000 hertz, but if the other frequency that you're comparing it to is 20,000 hertz, then it's a low frequency, 10,000 hertz. Then it's half, right? So that it goes lower. So most things in music, you can think of it relative to other things. And once you remember that, then most music is going to be like, I wouldn't say easy, but there's a lot of things that you're going to understand about music in a deeper way, I think. Next up, we have Dime here. I don't know if this is a new person, but there used to be a Dime in my stream a long time ago, or in my students a long time ago. But this Dime has written Mental Rehab, which is an interesting track name. This doesn't sound like the Dime I know, indeed. It is the Twitch Dime, yes. Alex Rix, how are you doing? Welcome, welcome.
Where do you live? Cheapest rates in Glencoe.
I like how this vocal is mixed.
Want to tell me your name?
Positive. I'm having much too much fun.
All right.
There were some vocals before that I felt were a little bit quiet.
Always lived here in Long Island?
Yeah, there's some moments where the vocal is
Born, I knew every pretty girl
quiet.
on the North Shore.
Yeah, the lead could also be a little bit louder, I would say.
Excuse me, miss. Cheapest rates in Glencoe.
With these vocals, with these vocals, compression is going to be key. All ball as well on your end? Yes. Doing good.
Are you stranded?
My father was supposed to pick me up, but something must have happened.
I think with these scene setting vocals for a track, it's really important that they actually come out of the mix a little bit and that it's understandable what is being said. I didn't catch half of the story of this track. I then meant to make my songs a little quiet.
This is maddening. I know I've seen that face before. Let me see your profile again.
No, but this stuff, the vocal literally just moves to me while it is what's talking.
With your father.
Also here, if the track lowers a little bit in volume, then having the vocal lower makes sense, but again, it's going to be relativity as well. But for me, vocals, I don't like it when you have vocals that are part of the storytelling of a track without it being audible what the vocal is saying. And that is really hard to do as a producer, as a mixing engineer of your own work, because you can, in the project, solo the vocal and listen to what the vocal says. And therefore, when you hear it in the context of the track, you already have in your mind what the vocal says, right? There's really no way around that. Overall, though, great track. I really like that. That was really well done. Maybe some other compression on stuff like the drums and that kind of stuff. But that depends on how loud you want to master it. And this isn't a song that feels like it needs a loud master. You might also be able to get away, therefore, with a little bit less bass in it. It might be for the liquid drum and bass if you're not like designing this drum and bass for the dance floor. If this is more of a, oh, put this on in a playlist that you're listening to while you're cleaning the house, or that you want to have more in the background, then it can be that the bass becomes overpowering for the track. It depends on the, I guess, context where you want to see this being played. Smooth track. Very smooth, yes. It's a smoking song, to be honest. I made it well high. Nice. Cool. Next up, we have another liquid drum and bass, I guess. Drum and wave, just because drum and bass or liquid drum and bass really doesn't fit in my opinion. The genre doesn't exist. Oh, I just started reading. I just saw this first and that is what I've read. My second track about this type of genre, is, which I call drum and wave. I'm very interested to hear what this is. Because drum and bass or liquid drum and bass doesn't really fit in my opinion. This genre doesn't exist. I invented it. I don't know if there's any track that sounds like it. Maybe some breakcore shit. I don't know. Forgotten Goddess. Drum and wave. Very low impact there. At that point you might as well just not have it. There is a almost constant high frequency noise playing, it feels like. I'm not a fan of that. There is a main melody playing somewhere in this mix, but it's a little bit quiet. You hear it when the filter goes down. You start hearing it a lot more, because then you get a lot more space. I like these chops more, where you're chopping stuff up. That sounds a lot better. My mixing skills are not good, your mixing skills are developing. I like that, yes. Every time you mix a track, you improve. That is very much the case. Also, just having a second opinion from somebody else is really gonna help. If you have the funds for it, it's sometimes good to just send your track, even if you're not gonna use the end product, but just to send your track to somebody else for mixing. Maybe also if you have a friend that does mixing or because this feels very washed out. Don't know how much of a fan I am of the BPM change. Threw me off a little bit. A lot of the same fills, a lot of the same transitions. Overall, cool musical idea, but the mix...
Rollo hatte den frisch aufgekocht auf dem Herd. Mein Daumen hast du. Ist ein echt schöner Track, schön gemacht.
Okay, cool. Those sustained pads down in volume, they should be more in the background rather than a layer. I think that is the case. I think that is what I'm hearing. I said like there's noise in there, but I think it's just the high frequencies of the saw wave pads that you're using. Overall, very, very cool stuff. I like how it says vocalist from Splice. I barely heard the vocal in there. So that's not going to get struck in, and even if it wasn't from Splice. Not that that makes it okay, but if you mix your vocals terribly, that's not an excuse to do the copyright infringement thing, but still. Next up, we have Hypercrow, who's also here in the chat. Let's see. Probably gonna get a lot more non-Psytrance stuff here. What vocal? That's a wild reverb. I don't like it when you have those slow downlifters or risers and then a normal rhythm, because then it's... I usually get confused which rhythm do you want me to focus on. That's harsh. This could do with some heavy pumping sidechaining. That, but it could first of all do with a massive EQ cut in this frequency range. This is way too harsh. I think it's again the same problem in that there's just like a quartz layer or some saw waves or something like that that is just washing out the entire frequency spectrum, and then you decided to EQ that to mainly be in the exact area where human ears are most sensitive. Almost all elements have at least a little bit of reverb, meaning that this track is lacking a lot of clarity, I would say. There's just like a bit of muddiness here in these parts, but then we have this, which is just not understandable what is happening here, because it's just harsh. Good job on getting that kind of width with a mono sub, but the way that you achieved it is by boosting up this area here, which naturally has more like width to it than say the lower mids and whatnot. No matter what I do on the EQ, I can't increase those high frequencies. What do you mean increase? What you need to do with your EQ is probably something along the lines, it's not going to work on the playthrough here, but you probably want to do something along the lines of this, because your track is massively harsh, right? Try a low pass. Yes, just go like your master should be like this. Master this. My dog's ears are bleeding. So are mine, and I don't even have a dog yet. I'm sorry, dude. It is a massively harsh track. That is definitely something to take care of, because if you play this in a club, that is going to be, everybody's going to have ear damage at the end of this track. It's gonna be that bad. Yes, they're gonna send you out of the club. You're never gonna be able to DJ somewhere if you're playing music like that. We are being unkind. I hope that he can take it. If not, then I'm sorry. I'll try to be more kind for the next time. Yes, I do see a past tense remix here, which is interesting that still happens, because that means that this obviously doesn't work. But that says remix in there, so I'm just not gonna play that. Read the rules. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that stuff even. Not gonna worry about that even. You're just gonna get the feedback ban, and that's how it's going to work. Hey, Dylan. Feedback ban there. I now have a rule system, and if you then decide not to read the rules, then that's on you. That's not going to be on me. Anyway. It's me and my friend's track. It's submitting any remix or bootleg will result in you being banned from joining any feedback stream in the future. I don't know how it can be any clearer than this. I'm sorry. That's the rules. Because it's unfair to other people, right? If I would let this slide now, then it's gonna be unfair. I'm sorry if it's indeed a friend or something like that, and maybe that's not in the spirit of the rules, where it's good for, where it's not good for, but I have rules in this kind of stuff. It has to do with the copyright and the massive amount of trouble that I'm already in doing these feedback streams, and I just don't want to have to deal with that anymore. Anyway, Xsync, iProjector, here's a full-on track from a few years back. I couldn't finish it in time for the stream to be fully satisfied, and I'd like to give some feedback. I'll give you a volume warning this time. So this stuff is going to be loud. It's not going to be louder than the stuff we just heard, I think. Time Travel. I have a track called Time Travel as well. It's actually starting off fairly quiet. Master Cloud. Okay. Not ear rape. Okay, yeah. There's differences in there. I like all of the effects and the sound design that you're doing, but in between it's just risers and downlifters. I'm not really a fan of that. What is probably a good idea is to have more of like a pad in there and something like that, so that you have something to balance against. As opposed to just the risers and downlifters. This isn't mastered loud. We can go louder on this one. There. 3 dB boost, now it's mastered full scale. Kick and bass is nice. I feel like this is the kind of old school groove, but I like that you still resampled at least the bass line. You don't have to care too much about that stuff in here. Did you resample the bass line? It does look like it's the same waveform over and over again. Yes, I'll give you credit for that. It's at 0-1 on the master, so it's kinda master. Maybe later on in the track it does that, yes. Yeah, but it's just small peaks where it does that, so it's not being pushed into a limiter, is what I'm trying to say. I feel like the kick is a little bit quiet. Could use like 2 dB more. Especially with this massive of a snare in there. I'll soon get those headphone fab things that Infrashell recommended a while back, because I can already start feeling them on my right side this time. Keeping it interesting with the morphing synths. I like that. I would like to hear some fills from time to time. Like a new element is introduced here, it's a good idea to maybe do like a 1 bar fill. Like that. There we have it. Now we can actually see the kick and bass. Interesting that it's like slightly offset there. Not that that matters. Cool 8-bit sound design, I'm a fan of that. Resampled thunder sounds, interesting choice here. Not sure if I like that. I would probably go with some like extra pads and then like very slow atmospheres in here. It's not Serum Bassline Logic's ES2 drifts slightly. Okay, but it looked like it was always the same waveform. Maybe that is part of the group. Maybe that is part of the idea. Honestly, if you're going for an old school style, a lot of the things that I say about like exact cleanliness and that kind of stuff doesn't really apply, because that is necessarily not what they did then. I don't know which rhythm to follow here. I hear like 2 vocals. Suddenly everything stops in a bit of a strange transitional way. It felt like they weren't all like stopping at the same spot, or they weren't all rising into the same spot. There were a lot of elements that weren't rising whatsoever. This synth definitely could have more impact. This could have really more power, a bit more presence, a bit more distortion maybe. Put 3 OTTs on it. Yes. That is how you get a modern style out of this track. If you just put 3 OTTs on the master, it's gonna sound like a 2025 production. 2025 style pattern. One sound that went up there had a interesting like moon, a whole bunch of like C's after each other spectrum. I might be a bit of a nerd when it comes to this stuff, but I really like sometimes just looking at what certain FM sounds and maybe certain spectral sounds do in the waterfall display. But I guess that's why you guys are here, because I'm a sound nerd. Cool stuff. I like that. Or Knob Wizard beard checks out. You just need a cool hat now. The beard definitely needs to grow more. That crash needs to ring out longer. I do like the crash moving from side to side when it's ringing out. That was a cool effect. Next to playing Q, you skipped over it. Did I skip over a track? Oh, because I played the... Oh, I'm so sorry. Because I played the pixelated track and I never went back to Ben Bighetti. He has been waiting here and sitting here all this time, waiting for me to play his track, but I skipped over it completely. I'm sorry. I'll play it now. Windbreak. Work in progress. It's been stagnating in this condition for a while, needs some TLC. I don't know my abbreviations. I believe TLC is a media company that stalks celebrities. Tender loving care. Aha. And that's not the TLC that I'm thinking of. So far it's sounding good, nice space given to all of the elements. I like these more minimal tracks where every element just has its own actual pocket in the mix. I say that knowing that I myself don't write music that way. The melody that you've... First of all, this head is out of sync with everything else that is happening, it feels like. Yeah, you can literally see the transients here for the asset line, and it's like not lining up with that. It feels a little bit off. Now with the kick, it's sounding better. Second thing is the asset line sounds very, very close to the melody that you get out of the default asset line from Silent. Silent or Nexus? It's one of those. I think this Soulwave lead needs an upgrade. It needs a bit more of an attack, it needs a few extra layers, it needs some more definition. It feels like it has maybe a bit of a too long release. I like those vocal chops a lot more. But of course you have to make change-ups and whatnot. The vocal isn't entirely glued to the track, it sounds like it's more sitting on top of it. That vocal chop was, yes. This one is almost... I guess it's a very wide vocal here. It is loud, but it's also like relatively wide, so I think that is also a reason why it doesn't feel like it's really part of the track. Like here we have the piano that is more in the center. I guess the Soulwave sounds are wide. Yeah, look what a massive increase in stereo wave we got from that vocal now playing. So that is one of the reasons why it's gonna sound wider or less glued. I like parts like this where we have some more clear definition in it. I guess one of the issues that you have with your saw wave thing is that it's encroaching on the space of your hats. So now the hats come through more. These are very small hats, so they're not easy to get through. Like the mix. I think I just got the hold of wider and slapped it on the vocal. Then I turned it up to 11 because it's one wider. I love the 90s rave piano. Yes, that was a really good sound. I like how much definition that one had as well in the mix. Other things that you can do to make the track less stagnant is mess with the drums and try to vary the rhythm from time to time. The other thing is the acid line plays throughout the whole thing. I don't think that is necessary. That is essentially an element that is keeping the track the same throughout the whole thing. So one of the reasons why it's going to sound boring is that it's or maybe stagnant is the better word. I don't think it sounds boring because you're doing changes and you're doing things that makes it interesting. It's more that there is one stagnant element below everything interesting that you're doing that is, you know, the same throughout the whole thing. Yes, it was meant to be a part of the bass. But in reality, also the bass doesn't have to play the whole time. Right? In the breakdown, you can have the bass not play. And honestly, it doesn't really work like that because the acid line has like mid-range frequencies and your bass, your sub-bass, plays here. So it's not really going to glue together, I guess, is the right term for that. Okay. I want to quickly see how many more tracks we have to listen to. We have one. Oh. it said plus 10 messages. And I scrolled down like here. So I was like 3, 4. Okay, so there's going to be more tracks. So I started counting. It was one track. And then it's just people thanking other people. That sometimes throws me off if there's many messages like that. I believe it's please don't use the submission channel for anything other than submitting. So I don't think that should be part of it. But I got thrown off from that a little bit. That does mean that we have a little bit more time for the queue to be open. What it also means is I'm going to take a quick break. If you guys want to submit a little bit more, I would listen to maybe another hour of music. And then, yeah. Then we're at 7:30. And then I can do like an hour and a half-ish of production. And then I'll quit, because then after that I have to record shorts. Otherwise I have to do that during the work week, which is going to be annoying. So yeah, I'll let maybe like 5 tracks enter, and then I'll just close the queue from there. In the meantime, I can just play my music. I guess I'll play that track that I showed before. This guy. So that's a nice finished one. This should now work, right? Yes. Cool. So I'll take a quick break. Once we get back, I'll continue listening to some more music here.
With the Renaissance came a learned monk, Nicholas Copernicus. He proved mathematically that the Earth was not the center of the universe, but was merely one of many planets circling the glowing sun.
Now.
Cool. This one is so well mixed, damn. Thank you, but the mix hasn't been done yet. In fact, you could see the lower frequencies of the sub bass still there because of the plugin that I use to sterilize my bass, which I've recently learned doesn't... Well, it works in a way that it's supposed to, but it doesn't... like the filter is so shallow that it doesn't... There we are. That it doesn't really work for what I wanted to do with it. Let's finish this before. Yes. Okay. I do see we have a couple of more tracks. 2. Damien Devil, yes, I saw that. And we have P, R, and V. But before that, we have Donut, making sure that I don't skip over anybody this time. According to psytranceguide.com, which is a cool website, this is supposed to be hypnotic psytrance. I'm in my analog synth phase at the moment, written in D because I hate myself. Cool. D is, yeah, it's in that area where it becomes difficult to really mix it well. How do you get the middle analyzer with signalizer? You switch here from line graph to color spectrum when it's set to spectrum. It's Prana, by the way. Oh, sorry. Sorry, what section, please? You need to go into the feedback rules first, and there you have to read. Oh, sorry, the section for the signalizer stuff. You can see that in, yes, resources. It's the pinned message there. Cool. I like this groove. Nice clean kick and bass. Doesn't really have a transient, but I feel like this one doesn't need that. In the mid-range this gets a little bit overpowering. There's towards the end here, at the end of your kick drum, there's a sudden, like very low frequency part. I don't know if you need that. But you can probably just best remove that. Like, it's not causing issues, but it doesn't have to be there either. Loud here. Make sure that sounds like these don't overpower like the kick and bass in your main elements. They're there to add a little bit of a detail to it. Oh, I just realized this is how you're reviewing the music. My mix is gonna get ripped apart. I try to be not like negative, but I try to be helpful. So I try to just continue talking over music. Because otherwise, if I sit there and say like, oh, that's good, that's good, that's good, that's not helpful. My goal is not to be ripping stuff apart. My goal is to be helpful. I like that flute. I wanted more of that flute and that vocal. Now we're going into this synth again. Again, I said maybe... Have you heard this before? We haven't heard it like this. No. But honestly, you could probably start playing that over here. That would give you a bit more space to have a little bit of an atmospheric part before it. Also, again, a little bit on the loud side. Post this once in the feedback, not for stream, because I missed it last week. Ah, okay. I may have heard it there. I honestly don't listen to everything that gets posted there. That's a cool transition, I like that. And a very loud sound here.
What is this place?
I say very, but like turn it down by like 3 dB. I have I wouldn't say like hack or something like that, but a small trick that I do is that every time I add a sound to the track and I have to determine its volume, I listen to it and I try to get its volume right where I think it's balanced. This is when I'm first adding it to the track, right? So I try to get its volumes where I want it, where it's gonna sound balanced, and then I lower it by 3 to 5 dB. Because then it's going to be actually balanced, because every time you like it or you make a sound, you're gonna like that sound and you're gonna want to have that sound come out, and that just means that usually you're gonna set it too loud for the track. Like this talking vocal now, it's kind of overpowering the kick and bass to an extent, and it's overpowering a little bit the hats here, so that definitely could be a little bit lower. Got myself a little snack if you guys don't mind. This is the job where I get to snack from time to time. I'm not sure if it's gonna be allowed starting tomorrow. I hope you brought enough for everyone. I don't know if I can get it through the camera. Let me try. Does this work? Can you guys just grab some? No, grab some. Just take it. I hope you had some time to yum. Nice. Okay, cool. Well, it is. The bag is half empty, so you guys must have taken some, because otherwise, why would that be the case? Anyway, we have Pranav here. Pranav Dev. This has the feels. Those are the other tracks that we still have. And I don't know, maybe I'll stop then and then produce for a little bit longer. But let's see. Nice vocal mix, I like it. Vocal could be a bit brighter now that especially now that the hats come in. This has the feels indeed, my dude. I like this. Short but sweet. This is the whole thing. It's playing for much longer, but I hope that you don't mind if I skip the minute of silence here. I should be doing a minute of silence in about an hour and 15 minutes. Actually 2 minutes of silence. Because it's National Remembrance Day in the Netherlands. Mine is very experimental, by the way. I like that. Lavender Scented Rain. I really like that artist name as well. Post by Lavender Scented Rain, one video. Tumblr. Is this gonna work? Okay. I've never seen Tumblr used as a hosting site. That's why it's the 1 minute of silence, yes.
Your flavor is so dilated, mellow milk. It is so desaturated, mellow milk. I can hardly.
I'm not sure I like the panning of the vocal to the right. A little bit of extra vocal processing would have been nice. Just to clean it up and maybe the tuning a bit.
I just wanna be perfectly neutral.
Recording a couple of doubles would be cool.
One loves to be neutral.
I don't know if that's gonna work for the style that you're going for, but I feel like the single voice isn't really doing it for me.
Lesser evil.
Any feedback for the track? Honestly, no. What you were doing was great. Just keep doing that. It sounded really cool.
Dilute it more with rain and flat fizzy water. Fill it up.
Did I really say nothing about that last track?
We take cartridge and take a big hit till you feel like nothing.
Well, damn, I was expecting some criticism, but thanks, man. If I did say nothing, then... Honestly, I may have been just in a trance from the music. It was a really good song. I really liked what you were doing.
0, that's still 0, but with extra steps. That's mellow milk.
It's indeed very experimental. I think you should record multiple vocals, layer them on a little bit on top of each other so that it's not just one sound. If you don't want to do it, don't have the vocal come from the right. I don't know what the musical idea behind that is. Usually when you're recording acoustic music, you're trying to build a sound stage, and the sound stage that you have made sounds like, first of all, with a lot of the lack of higher frequencies, it sounds like the curtains on the stage are still closed and you're standing behind it, but you're also standing in the part where you're about to run up from. So it sounds like you're... How would you say it? I don't want to be too critical, but this is still very much somebody that is trying to figure out what they still need to do in order to record the music that they want to make, I'm assuming. But it's hard to say that you... I wouldn't say that you... It doesn't sound like you have like 10 years of experience recording stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's clear that you're a beginner at the recording bit, and therefore most likely also with the mixing side of things. You have 2 years of experience. Okay. I don't know how hard it is to record music. I've never recorded music, so I'm unable to comment on that. I think there might be a case to be made that playing music for a live audience is going to be very different than playing music for a recording. And this sounds like you played for a live audience. Not to annoy, but if there's something that you feel I could improve, please share. I will have a listen again, because that is the quality is intention. To be honest, I don't really like it. It sounds like it just sounds amateurish to me. I guess part of that is the panning. Maybe with the panning more in the middle and some extra balancing and that kind of stuff, you can get it to work, but it just feels a little bit off to me. I'll try to listen to it again and see if there's anything I can actually find on your track, because it feels unfair not saying anything about it. I mean, this is a really clean mix. Nice layering on the violins. Little bit nitpicky, but that synth that played there / guitar thing could be a bit louder in that pre-drop, but here it's okay. No. It's really no. To be honest, I don't know what else I would be able to say about this. I know it's like short, but you're nailing everything up until this point. This is exactly what you're supposed to do. So my feedback would be write another part that sounds just like this. Like for the small demo that it is, it's perfectly crafted. It's very well mixed. It is very well written. There's interesting ideas in there. There's interesting switch ups. Really, you're just nailing it. So I have nothing to share, which is also feedback. That technically counts as feedback. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Glad to hear come from you. Be producing for 3 years, and I'm now 18. That's really impressive. That's very, very impressive. I wish at 3 years of production experience, I was making music that sounded this good. I don't know, like, some people say, like, you have more tutorials now and you have more resources to learn, and it's getting easier, but there's also so much more terrible advice out there. One of the things that I've noticed is that the people that, when it comes to tutorial making, the people that succeed the most are the ones that confidently spout how things should be done without really justifying it, because the justification is going to be very boring to some people. So those will leave the video, and therefore it gets recommended less and whatnot and whatnot. But that means that you can just say wrong stuff, and as long as you're confident, people will believe it, right? People will just follow along with you. And so therefore there's like a lot of advice out there that sounds like good advice, but that might actually not be good for you. Because generally speaking, advice is going to be very specific to the genre that you're making. And there's a lot of people out there that want to capture a broad audience. So they want to capture everybody that makes all kinds of different genres. So they'll talk about things like, in EDM you have to do this, or worse still, if you're doing a mix, then you need to use this plugin. That kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And if you fall for that kind of stuff, it might actually be harder for you to succeed now than it would be like 15 years ago. Because like 15 years ago, the people that made videos, the people that made content, they needed to know, first of all, there wasn't the ecosystem of being able to make money doing the things that I do, right? So there wasn't really an incentive for you to try to capture a massive audience, because what were you going to do with a massive audience? The other things is, if you were making videos, you would need to have a certain technical knowledge about making videos, and that translates into also having that technical knowledge probably about the way that you're writing music, because then you're like technically minded, right? And that means that the people that were making tutorials back in the day were more technical in the way that they would explain things, and therefore I think also more thorough. Preferably also use their samples on the track. Yes, buy their packs, that kind of stuff. Benny Geddig, thank you for stopping by. I hope that you liked the feedback, and I'm sorry for being late. We have a video from Ethan Ross here. Looks very cool.
Quanto vale la tua auto?
Yay!
Auto.it puoi scoprirlo online in modo.
Sponsor block. I need a thing that blocks the sponsors in this if I'm doing YouTube. Or I may need to just say no YouTube videos, but that is a little bit harsh. I would like to play it in here so there's no autoplay stuff.
Cold nights, frostbitten, I feel like I'm unwanted. Voices echo in my head, I know I broke all my promises. Now it got me feeling nauseous. Only question I still got is, why'd you have to leave me? Guess I should let you go.
This is a better balanced track than the recorded track we heard before.
So why'd you have to leave me? Baby, don't you leave me. I don't even know why every time I'm alone it hurts my soul. Yeah, baby, told me pick my poison. These drugs for enjoyment, I'm a disappointment, but I still think I'm gorgeous. Mama told me stay out of trouble, but I can't, so I live in discomfort. It's the only way that I can go.
Honestly, it feels like a fairly aggressive
Don't treat me too good, feel like I know I'm gonna
beats
can't put into words how I feel empty, just waiting
for the vocal. But I was expecting maybe like more lo-fi drums.
So I just walk in shame. Is this how I was raised? An embarrassment to my name. I'm out of ways and on the
Low frequencies are really dampened.
I couldn't hang, boy.
There's a hat in there somewhere, but it's
So baby, stop saying
barely there.
cold nights, frostbitten, I feel like I'm unwanted. Voices echo in my head, I know I broke all my promises. Now it got me feeling nauseous. Only question I still got is,
I like that you're doing your triple vocal thing,
guess I should let you
but
go.
it would be nice to have some sentences more just the main vocal. Yeah, like this guy.
It's better for my soul.
Maybe doing a bit more with that, so that it
Don't you leave
plays off each other a bit.
Why every time I'm alone.
This goes pretty hard, not gonna lie. I do agree, yes, this is a very good song. This is definitely what I would consider like well produced. It does say studio performance, so I don't know if you had help with a professional studio, but it does sound like that. Apart from, as I said, maybe like the high frequency hats needing maybe, or the high frequencies of the hats needing a little bit more, because they feel like really still. I do get why you would do that, so that you have more space in the vocals, which is something that I advocate for. I did have help with a professional studio. Yeah, it does really sound like that, but overall it's well done. I don't know enough about songwriting, like I'm a Psytrance artist for a reason. I don't know enough about songwriting to really dive in depth on the composition and the way that you're building that. So I'm mainly focusing on stuff like mixing when I'm talking about this stuff. Also, I feel like as an artist, I much rather prefer somebody gives me feedback on how I can make my musical vision come to life, as opposed to how I can alter my musical vision to conform to the vision of somebody else. So in my feedback, I try to not encroach on your idea of what the track should be. Like I wouldn't go and talk about your lyrics, for example. Because A, I don't know, as I said, anything about songwriting, and B, that is so personal, it doesn't feel like I should be, I guess dictating is not the right word, but giving you alternatives to what you actually want to write. Right? That's not going to be helpful, because you know what you're going to write. Hopefully. But overall, good track. I like that. We have 2 more. And there's 1 more being submitted. So I guess I'll wait on that last submission and I'll close the queue for today. I guess I can already change the title. Speaking about title, do you see in the beginning of the title it says last day of my sale? That is true. I am still selling stuff at a discount. So if you have ever thought about buying any of my products, I know I just said that other people are shilling products, but if you've ever thought about checking out some of my products, now is the time to do so, because they're now 30% off. Use promo code SPRINGSEAL 2025, all lowercase, and then it should all work. Unless you go to PayHip, there you don't need a promo code. There it's just applied. Thank you, I appreciate it, man. You're welcome. Glad it was helpful. There we have Xsync with the last submission, and then I'm just going to turn off the queue here. There. So that means that next up we have Tornado with Fractal Machine Pre-Master. Interesting artwork. I like that. Feels very dark side-ish, which we haven't had today, so I'm glad we get that. Ah, it's techno. Interesting. You have a lot of overlapping kick drums here and messed up transients because of it. We're gonna lose a lot of punch because of that. Whatever you're using to trigger your kick drum, make sure that it can only play one sound at a time. I would even go as far as to say render out your kick drum in audio, do the kick pattern in audio, and then manually make sure that the kick fades out every time, and then like don't do too many phase shifting processes, all that stuff. I do really like this vibe that you're going for. Experimental techno almost. A little bit loud in some of these bleeps and bloops. This is really cool, I like that a lot, but yeah, these kind of high frequency loops, they should definitely be a lot quieter, because they're gonna overpower like the hats and they're just like annoying. If that plays at a massive sound system, like these lower volume ones, those are gonna be okay, but even the short ones, if they're really loud, they're gonna be piercing. That's piercing. Maybe in some of these spots when you start, it would be cool to have no ambience for a little while, so that the like force of the kick drum comes through a little bit more. Now it feels like the ambience is just almost continuous throughout the whole track. Lovely snare on that. Could use a little bit of stereo with that snare though. Strange filtering here on the kick drum. Sounds like you lowered its transient. Like just by default, this transient is like lower than what it was before. Overall, very cool idea. I like this kind of experimental stuff a lot. It needs a little bit of polishing, specifically those kick transients in my opinion in this genre. That just has to be consistent. So definitely resample those guys and make sure that whenever one is playing right before the other one, that the tail is not bleeding into the next one, that you're fading that out and that you're not doing any massive like phase processing on your kick drum or on your master, to make sure that every transient has a little bit of, really essentially what you would want is transients that do this. Wait. I think I have some like techno-ish kicks, so I think I can do something that is a little bit similar to this. Like this is actual techno stuff, right? Trying to find one that's like an an actual transient to it. I guess this guy does have a bit of an actual transient. If I just like zoop to this and then cut you off right here, you would make a bass sample that is somewhat like this, right? Where you just have your actual kick that has its nice transient and it's doing its thing. And then you duplicate it over for whatever rhythm that you want. What I would do is see how now here you have a little bit of a boot or a volume still happening right before the transient. That is going to lose you punch because, again, music, it is all relative. This is now not louder relative to this. But if you fade it out like that, if you have your kick drum go to silence here, even just this little small part is going to be noticeable by the listener. I should maybe not consolidate that so that we can just duplicate this over here. But now this is going to be much better. Right? Every transient has its nice knock to it. Say that you're doing rolls. If you do that like this, listen to what the transients do now over here. Right? If I just loop this, you are going to hear 2 clear transients, a mess here. Or actually 3 clear transients, and then it's going to be a little bit of a mess here. What you want to do in that case is something like this, where again, we're making fades, but see how with the fade still there, it's going to stop, stop, next transient hits. Same idea, much more powerful, much more punchy. You guys can clip that and send that to people that don't know about this. Okay, we have 2 more tracks to listen to, and then we're going to be done with the feedback session of this stream. Can you show how to make the gated vocal drop with a triplet drop? Get any gator and make sure that it's doing triplet things. So take your LFO tool, set it to triplets, 1/16 triplets, for example. I believe it's 1/8 triplets in LFO tool that you want. 1/8 triplets. Let me see. Put that on an audio track and then you're gonna get your vocal. Something like this. No, 1/16 triplets then. Here. Make sure that it doesn't click by like fading it in here. This would work with a kick and bass, right? You guys know that. You can hear that. That would actually... EDM kicks. I believe this... Didn't Cashmere Packs used to come with sidetrend stuff? Like not good sidetrend stuff, but the EDM, I guess good sidetrend stuff, but the DMB type of, yes. This guy. That's the... take that back. It's not good. That, and then you would add like a bass to it. I might have some basses in here. Get yourself a nice progressive sounding bass. Control 3. First of all, I'll tune this guy. 1, 2, 3. Wait. D. There. Obviously turning off warping in that case. And then for your bass line you want to find the spot where it sits in there 3 times. Now you can hear that it's not the best kick and bass example, but just for the example you can hear that it now matches. I mean, you can also do it like this. That technically also works, but the 16th note is gonna be more unified with the kick and bass itself, and that is usually what people want. So that's how you do it. It is really simple, yes. Have to sync the vocals and bass? You don't have to, no. But you can. Because not all vocals sound fitting with the triplet. I mean, if you enforce a rhythm that is triplets onto it, right? Technically there's maybe like a little bit of rhythm in here. Maybe there's different vocals that just simply don't work. Let's see, like ethnic loop kind of deal. Like if you take something like this that already has a rhythm in there, even then it honestly works better than I expected. But you're right that some rhythms just simply aren't going to work if you play it like this. So this has that really strong 1/8 note at the beginning, but honestly, turning on this guy just completely gets rid of that. You can hear it a little bit. Yeah, I would argue that you would need to find a vocal that works decently rhythm-wise. Don't just throw any vocal in there. Try to find a vocal that actually works with the rhythm of what triplets. How do I know if the bass and that vocal is in the same key? I mean, usually the keys and vocals are written in the sample and the bass you write that in the MIDI. But otherwise, you have to listen and hear if stuff sounds out of key. Most things you're gonna notice. I should go back to the other guy. This is an F, so that is going to work. And if you have something in A, that doesn't really work. I mean, it's not terrible, but there are gonna be some examples that don't work. That guy there, a D sharp is gonna sound off. So if you're doing anything that, usually it's in the sample. If it's not in there, another trick that you can do is just open up a EQ and just literally look at this guy's in D sharp, so there's gonna be a spike here. And the spike that you want to look for is the one that has a copy an octave lower. So this guy sits over here at D sharp 2, and then there's going to be another one which is going to happen at D sharp 1. Spike here, spike there. You might find some samples that already have that lower one removed, but usually samples from vocals are going to have both of those in there because fundamentals are important in vocals. Anyway, moving on with the last bit of feedback. More easy to figure out vocals in that scenario. I don't know what that really means. We're gonna move on with the feedback for now. Charco, Ciarco or Charco. I don't know, because normally in Italian there would be an H in there if it's char. So maybe ciar. I mispronounced it either way, so I'm sorry. It's gonna be Spacewalk. Getting some sidetrans towards the end of the stream. Nice. We again had a lot of other genres today. Very, very quiet. Sorry, I would like to restart this SoundCloud. Thank you very much. Honestly, I would probably remove this vocal. I can barely hear what's going on in that vocal. Kick drum is clean, but you LFO tooled it instead of resampling your bassline. So you tried to hide it, but you failed because I can see that the transients of the bass individually are still messed up. I would recommend that you resample instead. Can we submit any genre for feedback? Yes, you can. I mean, not today because the queue is closed, but normally when the queue is open you can submit whatever you want. My stereo analyzer is messing up. This is the stereo. Overall nice balance, nice mix, I like it. Nice groove with the drums here. I like this a lot. This is powerful. Normally I would argue that this is too much sub for tracks, but I feel like this is also fits the mix. Because it's a like strangely shaped spectrum. Usually it's like, oh, we go down here, then there's that bump there, and then you have the hats bump, no? But now it's just like zook, zook, going up again. Interesting approach. It does work though. Doesn't sound off whatsoever. Little rhythm that was out of sync there. Strange moments for the hat to start working again. Or start playing again. Do you always stream randomly? It's always fun to watch and learn from your streams. I stream every Sunday at 5 o'clock, the exact same time, at least in my time zone, so that might depend slightly for you in different parts of the year. But I never really stream randomly anymore. Don't really have the time for that. Aja inspired sound, this is definitely not the style that Aja makes. This is definitely darker. Darker, sub heavier. Aja is more of a nighttime guy. This is more dark full on type stuff. I'm Dutch, but I live in Italy, Saim. Jump Street song, yes. Feels more like that. And even then it has more of that like atmospheric and psychedelic textural stuff behind it. In this breakdown, the vocals could stand out a lot more. They were in the background too much for me. I tried to hear what they were saying, but it's really hard to follow. But this ratcheting, or would this be like linear arrangement where one sound plays at a time and it substitutes? That is a Jump Street thing. Or at least I've heard him do the same thing. I'm not sure I'm a fan of the triplets in the fills here. I liked it when it was going back into the drop there. It's a little moment where it gets you out of it, but in these fills I personally like to stay in the rhythm of the dance. I've explored your wavetails, I'm only at 100. I've explored your wavetails back, I'm only at 100. They are amazing. Thank you. You mean the tones back? If the bassline changes to triplets and then it's stuff prog side, yes, if you change this bassline to triplets, it immediately becomes progressive. No, that's gonna depend on how it's used. Somebody mentioned a website earlier. Psytranceguide.com. If you want to learn everything about subgenres, go there. Very well done on this track. I really like the arrangement. I really like the progressions in there. I really like its groove. You see me bouncing throughout the whole thing, hopefully. Main thing you now need to do is resample your bassline properly and don't try to cheap it with the LFO tool. You're gonna get nice transients out of that if you do that. Triplets can be in any side, but in prog it's extremely predictable. Commercial prog, to be exact. Yeah, I like to make a difference between prog and progressive. I think prog is more the stuff that, not even Vini Vici to an extent. Vini Vici is almost like full-on prog in that it takes still some elements from full-on. With prog I mean more like Omniki and Neelix and those kind of people. The more commercial side of the progressive psytrance subgenre area kind of thing. I like to make that distinguish between that and the kind of progressive psytrance that Asterix makes, right? Because I also think that Asterix, it's not full on. That's definitely progressive. It has those long breaks and sometimes it does that kind of stuff a little bit more. But not to the extent that somebody like Omniki does it. And I don't know why Vini Vici style is so frowned upon, because it goes away from what psytrance really is, and some people don't like that. It's not that it's not good music, it's that it's mediocre psytrance, so to say. They have good tracks too, yeah, of course. And it's, as I said, it's not bad music in any way. It's just that for most people who come to psytrance, that is not the sound that inspires them to stay with the genre. I like how they play with vocals and the drops. Yeah, so that is gonna be something that is more appealing to a general public and less appealing to people that are more in the rabbit hole, so to say. I've never been a fan of that like tribalism within psytrance kind of thing, but I do understand where it's coming from. People still have a preference to what they like and what they don't like, and Vini Vici was really out there. Vini Vici is like Big Room combined with psytrance. Yeah, that is exactly what it is. I said full-on progressive, but it should be like Big Room progressive. But it's still I guess the structure that Vini Vici uses is more Asterix than it is Neelix, Omniki, Blastoise, those kind of guys. Does that make sense? That I'm making a difference between those two groups? I don't have them as any reference tracks here. Otherwise I would dissect the structure. Blastoise is also prog. Yes. It's technically all progressive. Right? But prog has come out as an easier way to distinguish between the type of progressive that Asterix does. Asterix, who are some other people that I actually like their progressive style from? Some of the stuff that you hear on, what's the EP called? What's the collection called that I like? Here, Transformations. Some of the stuff that you hear on Transformations, right? So the Groove Odyssey is not a good one. Symbolic, Anatomy, these guys. Life Forms here. The other one that I like is Asgard. There's some really good progressive stuff. So that is one type of progressive, and then you have the Vini Vici and more the other guys, yes. Animato and Berkia, so that would be the progressive stuff that I don't like. That is it's just different. I don't even know exactly how to describe it, because they are trying to do the same thing. It's just that one is the groovy bass lines and the endless build-ups into nothingness, and very long breakdowns, drops that are meant to be jumped to as opposed to danced to. I guess that is the best description of the difference, right? An Aztec track you dance to, a Vini Vici track you jump to. Kind of like how you used to jump to Big Room back in the day, back in 2013, 2014. When was it? Like 2015 when Martin Garrix and that kind of stuff was like super popular, and we were all into that, or at least I was. Those were simpler times. Then you just jumped for 30 seconds and then you stood around for a minute and a half. Screw jumping. Yeah, dancing is more meditative. If I make prog psy and I send it for feedback and you don't like that type of psytrance, are you going to give genuine feedback on the song? No, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to insult you for however long the track is, and then I'm going to ban you instantly. No, of course, dude. I don't care. I'm not racist towards music. Musical racism. Anyway, let's listen to the last track, and then I'm gonna produce a little bit, and I'll call it quits. You're Tripping by X Sync. This is some high-tech track that has already been on the stream. I've been working on the mix and remade the kick and bass. Nice. Genre assist. I was a metalhead when I was young, but I got into EDM in 2013 with dubstep. I have almost the same path. Instead of the getting into EDM after listening to metal back when I lived in the Netherlands, I got into the big room stuff, the Martin Garrix stuff and all those guys. I like it. Bass alignment looks a little bit wonky here. I don't know if that's the way it's supposed to be. Like, it sounds good, but the waveform just looks like here it does one oscillation at a lower frequency and then it goes back up, kind of deal. Could also have a little bit of fade out before all the transients. I do see that it's like bleeding into the next one. Not like bleeding into the bass too much, I think. But I can see it going up here, and given that you have this oscillation, you could probably have it stop a little bit earlier. I'm actually, over the last half year, have gotten back more into metal. I feel like there's a little bit of, like, I like to call this like reverb wash throughout the track. Here it's a little bit less obvious, but I feel like Hi-Tech is supposed to be very, very choppy. And I think putting reverb on everything, it kind of negates that effect. Like, there's definitely like a wash when this FM synth plays, for example. Right, instead of just being a nice FM chop starting here and then stopping here, there's this little bit of stuff there, there's a little bit of stuff there, a little bit of stuff. Just like in the high frequencies, mostly, that is where you get that most choppiness from. A good tip is individually going through, if you already have that like burned in or something like that, going through with a Dynamics plugin that can do gating, and setting up the gate so that you it like does like this. Do you see how it kind of every time goes down again? For every 16 note, essentially. If you set it up like that and then you mix it in dry wet, you're gonna get it chopping off the reverb more lower in volume than it would the actual main sound. And usually the way that I set up is the main sound, the gate is gonna be fully open, and then whenever the sound immediately stops playing, so with lower attack, decently lower ease, don't go too low on that, but for like maybe 50 milliseconds, something like that. Have it just immediately chop down whenever it can. Of course, this is not gonna work here because this is like a full mix. Could gate fix it? Yes, yes. Parallel gating is really powerful for fixing those kind of issues. And we do it in parallel because if you do 100% wet, it's gonna sound unnatural with the speed of the release being so fast. It just didn't sound fat enough with the fade out. Yeah, that is a little bit of a problem. But at least the last... At least the last cycle. Have it stop here. And then go into transit. As opposed to having this little guy there. I think that's not going to get you that continuity. How would you say that because I know that if you fade it out too much, you're going to get that where every note is choppy and it's not that almost continuous sub-bass effect that we often want from the Hi-Tech when it's all playing at the same root note. But I think just getting rid of that so that you get a little bit more focus on the click. That should be still okay for that. How long does it take you to produce a whole song you want to publish? Days, weeks? Do you want me to count like if I were to work on it continuously? Or my usual between starting a project and releasing it? Because those are two different things. The first one is probably measured in days. So maybe like 3-4 full days of production. Saying every day is like, no, more. Then it would be like a week. Because I definitely do more than 100 hours per track. But if you're talking about how long it takes me to start the project and then go to the release date, the different dates between that is usually measured in years. Because I work on many projects at the same time. Overall, the writing is really tight. I like it. Just needs a little bit of extra tightness in the mix as well to match. And then you are nailing that Hi-Tech sound because the sound design is on point. The arrangement is on point. Just the speed is on point. Everything is there. What headphones do you use for making music? I use Studio Monitors. Adam Audio T7Vs. These guys I only wear for stream. These are the Sennheiser HD 280 Pros 64 ohm version. I hate the cups that I currently have on them. They're really nice for their frequency response, but they start hurting after a while. So right now they hurt as well. The DT770, I have never used them, but I've heard only good things about them in regards to how they are for production, so probably yes. Do they need one of those high impedance amplifiers? Is that the word? Because you have the ohm amount, that is the resistance amount, right? 64 ohm is what it says on here. That is one thing, but I believe the impedance is a different thing. Thanks, I'll make an EP when I'm confident enough with the mix. Honest, yeah. I mean, that's also a good idea. I would say just make the EP anyway. Because it's like what I'm talking about here with the mix is the last 5%, right? Impedance is not the same thing as resistance. Both are measured in ohms, but different electrical function. Is impedance measured in ohm? I didn't know that. Maybe what I'm seeing here is the impedance. Then, because I believe that impedance is an actual measurement that I've heard being used in headphones, and that is it changes which amplifier is best for the headphones and how you're driving it, and I believe even like the connection that you have to. DT990s are great, I just have new beers. Yeah, to be honest, that is the answer to your question. It doesn't matter which headphones you use as long as you get used to them. As long as you get to know what they sound like. Of course, you're gonna have a better time with proper mixing headphones over a gaming headset. So headphones are enough to make a song right. I don't have studio speakers. So studio monitors are going to make it much easier. A treated room like I have, partially treated. My room isn't fully treated and you can probably hear that. Wait. Do you hear the ringing? If I go behind here, maybe you hear it. Does that pick up on the mic? It's not fully treated, you can still hear it ringing around. But even the little treatment that I've done is gonna be... Your claps are mono. The whole mic is mono, so everything is mono. Yes. No reverb. But the more... They say it doesn't matter which hardware you use for the mixing engineer. The mixing engineer is much more important. But I guarantee you take a mixing engineer and give him a crappy set of headphones versus a fully treated studio with monitors, and they're going to perform better in the studio with monitors. That's just fact. So it does matter. That moment when you make a sick kick and bass with monitors, but then the headphones just say no. I always trust my monitors over my headphones. I know that my headphones have terrible, how would you call it, like time translation? Is that a thing? Where it feels like with the Psytrance bass specifically, because we have this really strong click and this really strong envelope on there, it feels like that doesn't get represented well on my headphones. I feel like I can hear high frequencies in every oscillation, even if I let's say I make a normal bass, right? If I do that, envelope, go down here. I still hear the middle and it doesn't get represented well enough here. Of course, you would have this guy play there. It has like a grittiness to it that I normally don't hear on the monitors, and I trust my monitors more than I do my headphones. These are 10 years old, by the way, so that's another factor. Impedance and resistance are not the same thing. I used to have electronic engineering 1, which part of that is just like physics 2 and stuff like that, and magnetism and whatnot. But I've forgotten literally everything about that. If you go biodynamic route, keep in mind that your hats and 6K in general will be a few dB higher than for everyone else. So that is why maybe some people have such dull mixes. It's because they are so popular headphones that everybody hears that, and everybody kind of in the same way overcorrects, and maybe that becomes like an echo chamber of a lot of people getting dull mixes because they use bright headphones. then what headphones would be perfect for music production? What does the DJs use? Yes, there is a singular set of headphones that every DJ uses by law. No, DJ headphones are different because they have a different need. DJ headphones need to perform in an area where they have to clamp off your ears so that you don't hear the music from outside. So a DJ headphone is not the headphone that you would need for production. Headphone for production, you just need to find one that you like the sound of, and then you need to learn what other people's music sounds like it on that. And that just means that you need to like listen to at least an hour of music a day on those headphones for like 2 years before you really get the sense of what the headphones are doing. And even then, try different systems, try different things, that kind of stuff. You need to do ear training. It doesn't matter what the gear is, it matters that you know what the gear is doing and what music is supposed to sound like on the gear that you use. Tobias, what would you say is one of the best ways to get better at sound design by not getting overwhelmed by it at the beginning? Like making a new sound a day, following your videos? Yeah, that's good. One sound a day is maybe a little bit little, but then again, not everybody is going to have a lot of time. Honestly, getting a good setup for just getting the right tools for your sound design. So for example, I'm going to plug my own stuff again because I know that it's good, but I genuinely use every day in almost all of my sound design, use tones from my Tones Pack. This is a great product. You should get it for Psytrance production. There's so many different options. It is super, super powerful. And it is currently on sale with 30% off if you use promo code SPRINGSALE2025 on checkout, unless you go to PayHip where the sale is automatically applied. Other things are like wavetable packs, which give you a little bit more because there's a modulation in there. A Tones Pack is just, this does nothing, right? Oh, sorry, the wavetable position does nothing, right? This is just an individual wave, and this is going to be the sound coming out of the oscillator, whereas a wavetable is going to be wavetable. It's going to be moving. So you have one extra dimension of modulation already like captured in here, and one extra way of changing the sound. Currently using Sennheiser HD25. Yeah, no, that's probably not going to cut it. These seem like really flimsy, cheaper headphones, not really made for mixing. This doesn't look like a product made for HD audio and studio audio. Knowing that your dynamic headphones don't reproduce transients well doesn't help you hear what isn't there. True. And that is why I don't trust my headphones to the same extent that I trust my monitors. Honestly, I'm not gonna produce anymore. I think I'm just gonna call it here because I do have to record shorts and I want to keep a little bit of my energy for that. Those Sennheisers look solid for DJ mixing. Yeah. Maybe that is better, but even then I would go over ear because you want to, as much as possible, close out the sound coming from outside when you're DJing, I assume. Like, it's not going to be possible if you're standing in a club where they're playing at like 120 dB or whatever it ends up being. But I think over ears, like I have for mine, are going to be better at isolating at least maybe the high frequencies, which allows you to maybe beat match with the high frequencies with like the transient of kick drums and that kind of stuff. So I think that might be better. These are DJ headphones. Yeah, that feels like it. They're not production or music production / mixing / mastering headphones. Any studio audio work headphones. Music creation. Say. I'm sure you could produce music on it. I'm just not sure that you can mix and master on it. Projector live set when? Well, you guys, I do post the sets that I do on Eclipse, right? Our label channel. We have set number 15 coming up, but every month I play a live set. I wish I had a system where I could just record that, but I record the live sets in the other room, because there I just have a little bit more space. And I can just leave the setup permanently there, and it wouldn't be like in the background or something like that. So I would like to have a setup at some point where I'm able to stream from that room as well. But that almost means that I would need to have another camera, because getting the camera off of this stand where it is, I have to like stand up here, stand over, bend over it, and fiddle with stuff, and then every time I move it, it's going to be slightly different, and I wouldn't be able to have a recording session before it and then go back, and if I have to like record another bit of footage, record the same camera angle again. So there isn't a good setup for me to stream the DJ sets right now. There's no one headphones that does it all, no matter what the MFG says. True, yes. If you're going to work only on headphones. Honestly, the best approach is probably get yourself a treated room and a treated room and some studio monitors. Can you see I'm getting tired, guys? I still have to record for almost 2 hours. I'm gonna go. Otherwise it's gonna be a mess. I wish to see you in a rave or even a festival someday. I hope so too. I hope that with my new job I can finally scrape enough money together so that I can get a second-hand standalone DJ system. And then maybe a table. And then I can set that over here and I can DJ more. And I can do indeed the live streams and that kind of stuff just from this room. That would be nice. But yeah, we'll have to see how that goes maybe in the next few months. And then from there, I'm going to get the confidence that I'm going to be like, okay, I can approach a festival and I can just go there and perform. Because now I feel like I have trained my DJing with this tiny ass console that is like this big or something like that. It's not going to be the same as a CDJ based system. I have no experience with the latter, so that is the thing that is holding me back and that is making me nervous. I think once I overcome that, it's gonna be okay. And I'm gonna be okay. I'm still gonna be nervous, of course, but then at least I am just stage fright, not nervous because I don't know what I'm doing up there. Anyway, that's gonna be it. See you guys. Cheers. Thank you for hanging out.